Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Gaurani Jaya Gaurani Gaurani Jaya Gaurani Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Śrīla Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Shri Radha Madhav ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3. I'm going to do 3 verses, verses 11 to 13. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shambaram dvividam banam
Sambayam Vividam Banam.
muram balvalam evacha
Muram Bhavam Evacha.
anyamscha dantavakradin
Anyamshadantabhakrami.
avadhit kamscha gatayat
Avadhitam Jayat.
Shambaram dvividam banam
Sambayam Vividam Banam.
muram balvalam evacha
Muram Bhavam Evacha.
anyamscha dantavakradin
Anyamshadantabhakrami.
avadhit kamscha gatayat
Avadhitam Jayat.
Shambaram dvividam banam
Sambayam Vividam Banam.
muram balvalam evacha
Muram Bhavam Evacha.
anyamscha dantavakradin
Anyamshadantabhakrami.
avadhit kamscha gatayat
Avadhitam Jayat.
Shambaram dvividam banam muram balvalam evacha anyamscha dantavakradin avadhit kamscha gatayat
Sambaram dividam banam,
Shambaram dvividam banam
muram balvam evacha,
muram balvalam evacha
anjalam cha dantavakradin,
anyamscha dantavakradin
adikams cha gatayat,
avadhit kamscha gatayat
Sambaram Dividam Banam.
Shambaram dvividam banam
Muram Balbalam Evacha.
muram balvalam evacha
Anjam Shabdam Tabakradin.
anyamscha dantavakradin
Anbhavitkam Gataya.
avadhit kamscha gatayat. So word for word. Shambaram,
Shambaram.
Shambara, Dvividam, Dvivida, Banam, Bana, Muram, Mura, Balvalam, Balvalam, Evacha, as also, Anyan, others, Cha, also, Dantavakra Adin, like Dantavakra and others, Avadit, killed, Kancha,
Kancha,
and many others.
and many others.
Gatayat,
Gataya,
caused to be killed.
caused to be killed.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Of kings like Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Balvala, and many other demons, such as Dantavakra, some he killed himself, and some he caused to be killed by others, Sri Baladev, etc. Okay, there's no purport, so I'll read the next verse. This is verse 12. Atate Bhratriputranam Pakshayo Patitan Nripan Chachala Bhu Kurukshetram Yesham Apatatam Balai. Translation. Then, O Vidor, the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the warfield. Again, there's no purport, so I'll read another verse. Verse 13. Sakarna dushasana sobalanam kumantrapakena hata shriya yusham Shishigonikai ki Suyodanam sanucharam shayanam Bagnorum urvyam na nananda pashyan. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushasana and Sobala. When he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. Purport. The fall of Duryodhana, the leading son of Dhritarashtra, was not pleasing to the Lord, although he was on the side of Arjuna, and it was he who advised Bhima how to break the thighs of Duryodhana while the fight was going on. The Lord is constrained to award punishment upon the wrongdoer, but he is not happy to award such punishments, because the living entities are originally his parts and parcels. He is harder than the thunderbolt for the wrongdoer, and softer than the rose for the faithful. The wrongdoer is misled by bad associates and by ill advice, which is against the established principles of the Lord's order, and thus he becomes subject to punishment. The surest path to happiness is to live by the principles laid down by the Lord, and not disobey his established laws, which are enacted in the Vedas and the Puranas for the forgetful living entities. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Śrī Gurave Namaha Śrī Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I beg the mercy of the assembled Vaishnavas so that I may be able to speak something relevant. So, Uddhav is continuing to describe the pastimes of Krishna after he left Vrindavan. The first verse we read today was verse 11. He said, of kings like Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Balvala, and many other demons, such as Dantavakra, Some he killed himself, and some he caused to be killed by others, Sri Baladev, etc. So let's see what we know about each of these kings and demons. Shambhara was a demon who kidnapped Krishna's son Pradyumna when he was only 10 days old. He threw him into the sea, where he was swallowed by a fish. Fishermen then caught the fish and found the baby. When he grew up, Pradyumna avenged Shambhara's crime by cutting his head off. Dvivida was a gorilla whose friend Bhaumasura, another demon, had been killed by Krishna. So he made a point of disturbing Dwarka, where Krishna lived. He would go to the hermitages of saintly persons and sages and smash their gardens and orchards and pass stool and urine on their sacrificial arenas. Eventually, Lord Balaram decided to deal with the gorilla and took up his club. Dvivida uprooted a big tree and struck Balaram's head. In return, Balaram struck the gorilla with his club, but neither party was even hurt. Dvivida used up all the trees to hit Balaram. Then he turned to throwing great rocks at him, but Balaram broke them all into pebbles. Finally, Dvivida struck the Lord with his fists, and then Balaram struck back with his bare hands, and this proved fatal for the gorilla, who vomited blood and fell to the ground dead. Bana was the son of Maharaj Bali, and was a devotee of Lord Shiva, who blessed him with 1,000 arms. He became so powerful that even demigods like Lord Indra were serving him obediently. Eventually, Lord Krishna fought with him and demonstrated that the powers of Lord Shiva's benedictions are no match for the power of Lord Krishna. Only when Lord Shiva prayed for Bana to be spared did Krishna agree to let him live. Mura was a 5-headed demon who guarded the capital city of the demon Bhaumasura. When Krishna and Satyabhama travelled there on the back of Garuda, Krishna broke the city's defences one by one, and Mura attacked Garuda. Krishna fought with him for a while, then used his Sudarshan chakra to separate the demon's five heads from his body. Balvala was a powerful demon who used to harass the sages of Naimisharanya. He used to come every fortnight and contaminate the sacred place by throwing pus, blood, stool, urine, and wine over it. Lord Balaram waited for the demon to appear at his regular time. Then he caught the demon with his plough and smashed his head with his club. Dantavakra was a foolish demoniac king who wanted to kill Krishna to avenge the death of his friend Shalva, another demon killed by Krishna. Unprepared, he approached Krishna armed only with his anger and his club. Krishna got down from his chariot and met him with only his club. Dantavakra tried to control Krishna simply by speaking strong words, just like the caretaker of an elephant tries to control the animal by striking it with his trident. Then he hit Krishna with his club, but it made no impression on Krishna. Krishna replied by hitting Dantavakra with his own club, and the demon's heart split in two, and he fell to the ground dead. The next verse we read was verse 12. Then, O Vidor, the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the warfield. So I think we're all familiar with the story of this battle, but remember that one of the reasons for Krishna's appearance, as requested by Lord Brahma on behalf of Mother Earth, was to relieve the burden on Mother Earth caused by all the kings and armies. So Krishna was just fulfilling their request by killing all the soldiers there. And now we come to verse 13. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna, Dushasana, and Shobala. When he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken, although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. So, Duryodhana was the eldest son of King Dhritarashtra, and he was the leader of the Kauravas, the side opposing Arjuna on the battlefield. Even in his case, he was not entirely bad, but he did have bad association and took bad advice from them. So who were those other people who are mentioned here? Karna was the first son of Queen Kunti, from before she was married to King Pandu. His father was the sun god, and he took birth complete with bangles and earrings, which was a sign of a hero. Because she was not yet married, Kunti gave him away as a baby by throwing him into the Ganges. He was picked up by Adiratha, who raised him as his own son, but this meant that his royal heritage was hidden. He gave away his natural bangles and earrings in charity to Indra, who gave him a great weapon called Shakti in exchange. He studied under Dronacharya, like the Pandavas and Kauravas, and there was a great rivalry, specifically between Karna and Arjuna. When they all went to Draupadi's Swayamvara, where a husband was to be selected for Draupadi, her brother refused to allow Karna to take part because he was the son of a Shudra carpenter, not a Kshatriya. Duryodhana selected Karna as his companion, and later Karna came to be one of his main advisors. He was reserving his Shakti weapon, which he got from Indra for Arjuna. Although the weapon could not fail, it could only be used once, and he particularly wanted to kill Arjuna. But he was tricked into using up his weapon against Bhima's son Gatotkacha, and it killed him instead. His own son Vrishasena was killed by Arjuna. Later in the war, he had a great fight with Arjuna and managed to knock off Arjuna's helmet, but his own chariot wheel got stuck in the mud in the battlefield, and he had to get down from the chariot to try to free it. On the ground, he pleaded with Arjuna to abide by the rules of battle and let him fix his chariot, but Arjuna, as encouraged by Krishna, killed him. Dushasana was another of the sons of Dhritarashtra, so he was Duryodhana's brother and one of the principal Kauravas. During the game of dice in which the Pandavas lost their kingdom, it was Karna and Dushasana who captured Draupadi, saying that since the Pandavas had lost everything, even she now belonged to them. When she was to be brought to the assembly hall, Draupadi questioned whether she was still Yudhishthir's to lose when he wagered her, since he had already gambled and lost himself. But Dushasana grabbed Draupadi by the hair and dragged her into the royal assembly hall and tried to disrobe her. This enraged Bhima, who vowed to kill Dushasana and drink his blood, which he later did during the Kurukshetra war. Still reluctant to agree that she had been lost, Draupadi continued to resist. To add more insult and to incite Bhima, Duryodhana exposed his right thigh, which resembled the trunk of an elephant, and showed it to Draupadi, saying, "Sit here upon the lap of your new lord." Bhima could not tolerate it. He vowed to break that thigh in battle. Sobala was another name for Shakuni, who was a brother of Queen Gandhari, the wife of King Dhritarashtra. So he was the maternal uncle of Duryodhana and his brothers. It was Shakuni who suggested the game of dice, and he represented Duryodhana in the game, using trickery and cheating to defeat Yudhishthir. When the Pandavas were in exile, it was due to the advice from Shakuni that Duryodhana tried several times to kill the brothers, like burning them in a house made out of lac. At one time, during the Pandavas' exile in the forest, the sage Maitreya Rishi visited them and then went to see Dhritarashtra. He chastised the king for having allowed the conflict between the two sets of brothers to escalate to such an extent. After explaining how powerful the Pandavas were and noting that they had Krishna as an ally, he implored the king to make peace with them. Duryodhana was not impressed by the rishi's words, and to show his contempt, he exposed his thigh and slapped it loudly. Maitreya's eyes turned red with anger, and he cursed Duryodhana. saying, "In the great war which will spring from the wrongs you have perpetrated, Bhima will smash your thigh with his mace." Now the mother of the Kauravas, the wife of King Dhritarashtra, was Queen Gandhari. She was the daughter of the king of Gandhara, which is now Kandahar in Afghanistan. She worshipped Lord Shiva, and by satisfying him, she received the benediction to obtain 100 sons. She was chosen to marry Dhritarashtra, and then she found out that he was blind. It is said that the duty of a wife is to follow her husband cent per cent, so she decided to follow her husband even in his perpetual blindness. She voluntarily accepted blindness herself by wrapping silk cloths around her eyes. And so she married Dhritarashtra under the guidance of her brother Shakuni. In her actions, therefore, we can see that she was a great ascetic, voluntarily accepting such penances. She and Kunti were both pregnant at the same time, and when Kunti gave birth first, she became envious. She struck her own abdomen, and as a result, she gave birth to only a lump of flesh. She was a devotee of Vyasadeva, and by his instruction, the lump of flesh was divided into 100 parts, and each part gradually developed into a male child. The first was Duryodhana, then Dushasana, then 98 more. Through her asceticism, she developed great mystic powers. In the war, she was receiving news about how the battle was proceeding, and as the days progressed, one son after another was killed. Her mystic powers included the ability to make someone invincible, so she determined to go to the battlefield herself to try to protect her remaining sons. When she arrived, it was sunset, and she entered the lady's tent, only to be told that all her sons had been killed except for Duryodhana. When she composed herself, she asked for Duryodhana to be brought before her. She explained to him that by her ascetic power, she could make him invincible, and that he should come back to see her the next morning, naked, so she could bestow her power upon him. The next morning, he took his bath and came to her tent. In the outer section of the tent, he took off his clothes, but just as he was about to go in, Krishna came out of the tent. He had gone to pay his respects to Gandhari. Seeing Duryodhana standing there naked, he questioned him. Duryodhana explained his mother's request, and Krishna replied, "How can any civilized man go before his mother naked? At least cover your loins." Embarrassed, Duryodhana agreed and wrapped a cloth around his loins before going in to see his mother. When he entered, she told him to stand immediately before her, and she removed the cloth covering her eyes. Duryodhana could feel the power of his mother's glance across his body, but when she saw the loincloth, she was shocked. She said, "Why did you not follow my directions? I asked you to come here naked, but you have covered your loins. As a result, the rest of your body will be as hard as iron, but your loins and thighs will remain vulnerable to attack, because I did not see them." In the battle, there was a duel between Duryodhana and Bhima, fighting with clubs. Duryodhana had learned club fighting from Lord Balaram, so he was obviously very good at it. Lord Balaram stayed neutral during the Kurukshetra war, since he favoured Duryodhana, but when he heard about this duel, he went there to try to stop it. He told the two fighters that since Bhima was more powerful, but Duryodhana was more advanced in technique, they were evenly matched. So neither of them could win the duel, and he wanted them to stop. But they were both so intent on defeating each other that they didn't listen to the Lord's advice. As the fight continued, with neither party able to defeat the other, Krishna reminded Arjuna of Bhima's promise to break Duryodhana's thigh, a promise which was later reinforced by Maitreya's curse. And of course Krishna knew about the invincibility that Gandhari had bestowed upon him, and that only his thighs were vulnerable. He made it clear that this was the only way Bhima could gain victory. Arjuna understood Krishna's meaning, and catching Bhima's eye, he slapped his thigh. Bhima understood this as a message from Krishna. So as they fought, Bhima used his club and struck Duryodhana on his thigh with the force of a thunderbolt breaking a pair of huge trees. Duryodhana screamed and fell and lay on the ground writhing in pain. Some of those assembled were appalled at the tactics used by Bhima. Balaram in particular was aghast, saying, "No stroke should ever be aimed beneath the belt. This is the ancient rule, but this wretch has broken it. Such an act cannot go unpunished." He picked up his plough weapon and rushed towards Bhima, but Krishna caught him and put his arms around him before he could reach Bhima. The two lords argued about whether Bhima had done the right thing or not. Krishna explained that Bhima was only keeping his solemn vow to break Duryodhana's thigh, and that keeping vows is a sacred duty. Balaram was unconvinced, and he sped away in his chariot. It's interesting to note here that Krishna indirectly encouraged Bhima to break the rules and hit Duryodhana below the waist. And he also encouraged Arjuna to break the rules and attack Karna while he was trying to fix his chariot. Similarly, as a small child, Krishna was renowned for stealing butter. So why is it okay for Krishna to break the rules like that, to lie and to steal? Does that mean we can also do those things? Krishna doesn't actually steal butter, because really everything in the world belongs to him anyway. He's only taking what is rightfully his already. The same is not true for us. We don't own anything, and we shouldn't steal from others. And similarly, Krishna is above the rules of warfare, so it's perfectly all right for him to encourage the Pandavas to break the rules. After all, Krishna is in charge of everything, so he can do whatever he wants. We shouldn't try to impose our sense of morality on him. We should try to learn from the example of the gopis. They were not concerned with conventional rules of morality. Their only concern was Krishna's happiness. Of course, we're not on the level of the gopis, and we shouldn't try to imitate them. But we should understand from them that Krishna is above the mundane rules that we have to live by. Now, as the verse says, when he lay on the ground with his followers, his thighs broken, although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. After encouraging Bhima to break Duryodhana's thigh and leave him lying on the ground to die, why is Krishna not happy? So there are actually two reasons. The first is, because all living beings are his parts and parcels, Krishna doesn't rejoice to see them suffer. So this applies to all of us. We are put into this material world by our desires to try to enjoy independently from the Lord. And Krishna gives us all facilities to try to enjoy. But he's also forced to punish wrongdoers, and by his will we are transmigrating from one body to another, depending upon the reactions to our actions and our continuing desires to try to enjoy. All this is put in place to allow us to learn that the only way we can be truly happy is to come to serving Krishna and to follow the principles which he set up. He only wants us to be happy and to engage in loving pastimes with us, but he cannot force us to love him. Love cannot be forced. It has to be through our own free choice. Krishna is simply waiting for us to turn back to him and become happy. Meanwhile, he watches everything we do, but it doesn't give him any pleasure to see us suffering in this world without him. And the second reason is because the intolerable strength of the Yadus still remained on the earth, so his mission to relieve the burden on Mother Earth had not yet been completed. And more on that second reason will be said in the next couple of verses, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or corrections?
No. I'll let you
Okay.
on today.
Okay. Sorry, it's a bit short. You get breakfast early. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Pushkar Raj prabhu ki
Hare Krishna.
jai.
Hari Bol.
es bueno. Mira, en Facebook 12 personas. En YouTube only 2.